Hey guys, Anthony here, Bibles and Barbells. Want to do a quick video tonight on a topic that I had slated for a video back in 2015. I don't think I ever did the video, but I'm going through some old folders in my prepper area here, and it was a list of things I wanted to do to put videos together for prepping purposes and to help people with prepping. And so a lot of them I never got around to doing. So this one I happened to stumble upon, and I thought we'd spend a few minutes talking about it because it was an SHTF video, and it was supposed to be trigger points that set us off into an SHTF. And as I'm looking at some of these with the current SHTF that we're in right now, some of these have a lot of relevance, and there's 28 of them. So you guys tell me in the comments section how relevant these 28 are in what we've experienced in the United States thus far since the end of February, beginning of March. Let's see, I went away for my wife's treatment March 9th. So around when did the country close down? The 11th or 12th, somewhere around there, because we were at a hotel within the first couple days after we got into Virginia and the DC area, that everything collapsed and closed down. So number one on my list of trigger points was bank foreclosures. And so that was a number one on the list, bank foreclosures. Don't know if there's been any bank foreclosures. I'm sure there has been with millions not being able to pay their mortgages. So that's number one on the list here. And there's no specific order to this list. It was just a list that I had listed here. Stock market swings up and down and an economic collapse. I think that has taken place. So number one and number two are pretty much, I think, in effect. Rapid inflation, food and fuel. Well, right now, for the time being, fuel is fairly low. I think the prices have dropped because there's a overabundance of fuel in the marketplace. Food, on the other hand, is going up. I can tell you that. And it's probably going to go up even more. And it's probably going to get a lot scarcer. Meats, especially meat, poultry, etc. We could do a whole nother video on that. But if you guys have been paying attention on the food supply chain shortage, supply chain breakdowns that we're having, it's very, very serious. If you haven't gone out and bought food, meats, dry goods, water, anything to do with food, eating, and drinking, you should be stocking up on right now in a very rapid fashion. At least that's what I'm doing, or actually adding to what I already have. So that was number three. Number four, crackdowns on 10 cities in the West. I think there's some of the videos I watch. Jeremiah Babe said that several 10 cities sprung up in the area in California where he lives just in the last few weeks. So that's an ongoing crisis going on now. I don't know how many crackdowns there have been yet. Maybe somebody can comment if they know the answer to that question. Nuclear device going off somewhere in the world. I don't think that happened, other than China maybe a week or two ago did some testing. They had said, or our government had said at least, they did some testing of nuclear devices. I'm not sure where exactly that was, but I know there was some talk about that in the news. 3 or more cabinet members resigning to spend more time with the family. I think if you look back over the last year or two, there were several people that high in government that did resign and said, I haven't spent more time. I need to spend more time with my family. So right now, guys, we're almost 6 for 6. One of our carrier fleets being hit or destroyed. Don't think that's taken place yet, although they've been harassed in the last several weeks. President on the 6 p.m. news from the Oval Office. At this time, it was Obama when I wrote this, with a long face saying, "My fellow Americans." I think that if we've all watched the nightly briefings or updates on the pandemic, that many times Donald Trump, the president, has a very long face on and seems very, very worried and frustrated. Jetliners flying into the White House or Capitol building. We haven't seen that yet. That's number 9. China invading Taiwan. We haven't seen that yet, although that might be in the plans in the future. Russia invading one or more of its former satellite countries. I guess there's stuff going on with Russia. I don't know if there's any, maybe somebody could comment on that one, a little more detail. Number 12, presidential assassination. We haven't seen that. 13, total collapse of Mexico with millions of Mexicans crossing our borders. I would think many people in our government and around the world would love to see that. Would love to see us invaded in that fashion. A major terror attack on one or more of our cities. We haven't seen that yet, although that might be in the cards. So these guys are the ones we haven't seen yet, are things to think about that might happen. A true pandemic, number 15. That should be number 1. This was it was a pandemic of huge proportions, global proportions, not just something that when I did this, compiled this list of different things that I would think would take on around the whole world and shut the whole entire world down. Government replacing existing money with new money. Government replacing existing money with new money. Has that been in the talks? Has that been in the works? Well, if you've been just cruising through Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc., you'll see things that several major players like Apple and Google are working on in the forms of cryptocurrency, electronic money, because of the virus that's going on. So that is a very real thing, a very real process that is probably, I think, taking place. Major advertisements for crisis actors. That's my big one. I always fall back on crisis actors because they're so widely used by the players at B here and around the world. And I believe that crisis actors are rampant right now throughout the medical industry, the nursing industry, the hospital industry, and all around commenting on and making news on for the current pandemic. That's my belief. I believe many of these people are paid crisis actors to spin the narrative or keep the narrative going a certain way, where a lot of times when you see a real doctor or nurse stand up, and some of these crisis actors can be real doctors or nurses, but they're just have an agenda and they're being paid for it, or they have a political motivation for coming forth with what they're saying, and therefore they're deemed a crisis actor. So they're in my book, they're rampant. And feel free to comment on it in the comment section. But we know they've popped up in shootings and in other places and other crisis events that we've had in this country. Solar flare or EMP. Solar flare EMP is a high possibility moving forward. It's something that we're not ready for as a country. It's something that has been talked about by many people in the prepping community, but many people in government have kicked the can down the road. And so that is a very real deal thing that could happen on top of what we already have, guys. So think of any of these things that has not happened yet in this list that if they did happen would compound the problems that were happening right now. And that'll lead into another video I'm going to do about marauders and looters, because that's something that's being that's getting ready to take place, in my belief. Solar Flare EMP number 18. Number 19, Second Amendment being repealed, followed by government knocking on doors. So right now we're seeing a push for many of the blue state governors and leaders and a lot of these Democrat, liberal, socialist, communists, call them what you will, pushing for more gun control. Many of them, in my book, would love to repeal the Second Amendment and would love to go knocking on your door or have you turn your guns in. So that's something that I think is very real. And as more and more patriots around the country protest and like they should for being locked down and put out of livelihoods and being quarantined, it's very likely that as more and more of those people go out armed to protest, that you'll see the left, the communist left, push back. Number one, demonize us as gun owners. Number two, the famous white supremacist or white nationalists, since most people in the country are white. That's how our demographics is set up. So it's very easy for them to fall back on the race card, which is probably their number one card that they use against us. What's got to happen, guys, is it's got to stop. It's got to be pushback on it. When we're challenged on it or called white nationalist supremacists, you stand up and you tell them to go to frickin' hell. That's what you do. That's what has to be done now. This is a do or die situation we're in right now. You don't back down from these people now. They're on a full court press, in my estimation. And if you're looking with open eyes in what's going on and maybe not watching the nightly news, the Foxes or the CNNs or the MSNBCs, where they all pretend they're, they got one news agency that goes against the others, and they show back and forth and they try to put you and I into one of those two camps. I stand outside those camps. I stand on my own camp. That's how more people have to be in this country. Don't be put into a camp. I'm Democrat, I'm Republican. I don't like either of them, guys, because the Republicans, in my estimation, haven't done jack squat to help this president overall in the last 3+ years. And the Democrats have gone overboard to destroy this country and now are really having their way with it, if you really think about it. So, aliens, number 20. You'll notice, if you've really been paying attention, they're releasing all these old videos, apparently, of sightings from our military people, of UFOs and unidentified flying objects. Why they're doing that, that's for a series maybe of other videos and maybe even watching some other sites that really dig in deep into that. But I think there's something going on with the looking for unidentified objects or aliens to fool or brainwash us further, if you will, or scare us into submission, if you will. So keep your eyes on that. Although many people will call you crazy, it's very real. And more than likely, if there are aliens, they are some kind of demonic form directing our leaders for the detriment of our republic and the world. Major civil unrest in American cities, 21. That's on the way. I believe if we do not settle a lot of the things that are going on right now, and that could be also for a whole nother video. Maybe we'll talk more about that in the Marauder Looter video that I want to do. And these videos are to get you thinking. Remember, a lot of my videos that I do are trying to get you to think, feel, and act. Well, thinking about having no food causes me to act and to feel. I just think about possibly me or my family going hungry or starving, and I get very, very nervous. I suddenly say, have I prepared enough? Have I done enough over the last 10 plus, maybe 15 plus years? What do I need to do on top of what I've already done to stave that off, or if something did happen where the system broke down and the government maybe took over farming or tried to control the food supply, which is what, if you're really real guys with yourself, it's what a totalitarian regime will end up doing. It's very simple. You don't have to be a military person and study. All you have to do is study a little bit of history, not even in depth, just know about a little bit of history, and you could see how somebody like, let's say, Joseph Stalin starved 20 million middle class to death in his country. So if you don't think it's happened before, if you look back into the 20th century, guys that are new to my channel, governments have killed more than all wars combined. Governments have killed more of the people than all wars combined in the 20th century. So look that up. Governments are not always on your side and have your best interests in mind. They do if you go along with their pogroms, but if you don't, and history tells us that you are either subjected to ridicule, turning in, imprisonment, torture, re-education, who knows with the technology we have now, drugged to think a certain way, or starved or killed, outright killed. It's happened. It's nothing that I'm making up. Just go do a little digging for yourself. Actually, check out the genocide chart, and you'll see a little bit of a glimpse of how many people have been killed in the last century. I think it's well over 200 million by governments. Take a look at it. Okay, 22, increased gang activities. Big one. Maybe we'll save that one for the looter and the marauder video. Because if you think that gangs of all kinds are not organizing and forming and rehearsing and thinking about, if this happens, what do we do? If this happens, how do we do this? How are we going to carry this out? What kind of crimes are we going to commit? How are we going to get money? How are we going to exist? How are we going to do this? How are we going to function as a gang? If you think they're not thinking that, think again. 23, martial law. Okay, martial law. Well, we have a kind of quasi-martial law right now, I think, in some cities around the country. Heightened racial tensions. That could flare up in a moment if the media, the socialist media, that is a mouthpiece for the Democrats, basically, or the socialists. Let's just face it, call it what it is. That could spark right up like that. They could push that narrative in a minute. So be on the lookout for racial tensions. What we're going through now has nothing to do with black, white, brown, but they'll push an agenda, like the white nationalist agenda, and get other people pitting one against the other. Be sure of that. That's how they operate. So don't think that's something that won't happen. 25, earthquakes, floods, storms, volcanoes, and natural disasters. Friends, I have news to tell you. There are more earthquakes and volcanoes happening right now that I think they're trying to cover. At least a lot of the earthquakes they're trying to cover up. The volcanoes are a little bit more difficult, but things are brewing, guys. And Yahweh is not pleased, I don't think. And we're living in true Bible times, in my opinion. Check the Bible, check prophecy, both the Tanakh, Old Testament, New Testament, and you'll see what I'm talking about. If you're a student of the Bible, and you should be, even if you don't believe in Yahweh or his son, Yeshua, much history in the Bible and many, many things have come to pass. In fact, the Bible's never been wrong, so it's got a pretty good track record. And the things that it talks about yet to come, with all the things that already happened, you could put a lot of your faith into what it says, and that I'll end that there. And there are natural disasters happening, and they're happening like a woman having birth pains. Very frequently, very fast, and all over the world, all over the planet. Lots of things happening in the skies too. That goes back to the alien thing. We created a Space Force this year or last year. There's a reason for all that, guys. Heightened racial tensions, earthquakes. 26, we're almost done with this video. It's been 20 minutes. The SHIT has been launched, but it has not yet hit the fan. 26 is already done. It has been launched. It has hit the fan. We are in a full-blown SHTF economic collapse / depression. You could bet on it. You could count on it. And these are the beginning phases. We have not even come to the real hardships yet. That's on its way. 27, military spouses and co-workers that have to suddenly leave work or call in sick. Well, we saw, I don't know about 27, because I don't keep track of all that. The military, maybe people could chime in. But we have seen hundreds of CEOs in the last couple of years step down and run for the hills. So they knew something was coming. They were alerted somehow and or tipped off, and they ran for the hills or cashed in their chips and are taking a back seat now maybe until the new world order starts, and then maybe they'll have bigger positions coming back. Who knows? Inability to work or employer shutting down. Number 28 in my list of 28 items. There you see it, guys. You can pause this if you want later on, and you can go through the list and you can look at it detail by detail and do with it what you want. But there are, today is Wednesday, tomorrow's Thursday. The unemployment numbers come out, and we're expecting to see well over 30 million reported unemployment cases in the United States of America, and it's more on top of that haven't been reported yet or put in the system yet. 30 million unemployed, stock market for the most part going up. Something's wrong. Something's disconnected. Businesses still closed all across the country. Whole towns and cities closed down. Businesses that want to open get pushed back or harassed. Very few places are opening right now. I think Georgia, I have to check on that, but or how that's going. But guys, we are in a really big mess, and we need to start thinking about what we're going to do as preppers moving forward. And as things in this SHTF that we're in, this economic collapse, this maybe fall of the dollar, we have to try to be a step ahead, although it's almost impossible. You have to stay on your toes, always be on the lookout, head on a swivel, and be ready to react. And hopefully many of you that watch this channel have prepped over the years, at least something, and not nothing, and you don't fall into the camp of looters and marauders, because it's a very real thing that when we run into these shortages of food and basic necessities, possibility of water, they're even talking about, water contamination or something with the water. And then on top of that, maybe rolling blackouts or EMP or some type of attack. Guys, we could be in a wartime scenario overnight. And that's why I'm doing these little updates, not to scare people, because when I saw this tonight, I said, hey, look at this. Most of this already happened. It's a very real thing. So that's my video for tonight, guys. Thanks for watching. Take care. Anthony signing off. Stay ready. More videos to come. And talk to you soon.